Hey there everybody, it's markcrilley. I'm back with another question and answer video. This is number 30, the big 3-0 in my ongoing series of videos in which I answer questions from my viewers. As I usually do, I'm going to be doing a bit of a challenge here today. Some years ago, I think it's at least 2 or 3 years ago now, that I did my left-handed drawing challenge. I thought, let's give it another go and return to that. I'm handing off this piece of pastel, which is really just sort of fancy artist's chalk, handing it to my left hand. Sometimes people think that I might be cheating this, like flipping the video. I thought, let's just show the pen, unless you think that I snuck into the Micron factory and had them make one of these in reverse. I am using my left hand here, but the technique that I'm going to be using here is going to be very impressionistic, and I thought in a way this could be a, you know, it's a challenge video, but could also be a useful way of giving encouragement to people who are not confident in their precision when they draw. You know, that their hands shake a little, and they have sort of feel like, oh, I could never be a good artist because I don't have great precision with my fingers. I thought, let's do this left-handed challenge and show that that is not necessary, especially within the realm of Impressionism. Maybe you can make a virtue of your setback and work in a style that does not require precision. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the first question that I got earlier this week. I put a video up on Monday to request questions. This one comes from Princess John. First of all, what is up with your case shift? Do you think talent is a prerequisite for becoming a great artist? I feel like it doesn't matter how much I am going to draw. People with natural skills will always be better. Now, you may see the reason that I chose this. Princess John here picked up on my little technique back on Monday, capitalizing certain letters as you go along here. You end up with a, here's the K. I'm going to go ahead and do this here, the D, the I. And eventually you end up with a secret message there if you string all of the letters together. I think we might have a Jason Derulo fan on our hands here. Or perhaps it's a reference to some other talk dirty that I'm not aware of, but let's go ahead and answer that question talking about talent. You know, some of you may recall that I did a video that really focused directly on this question of talent. Are people born with talent? Does it all come down to hard work and so forth? And I'm going to link to that. To those of you who missed that video, I think you might enjoy it. It really does focus on this concept of talent. And I'm sure I would have said it during the course of that video, but to answer the question there, you know, I think some people seem to be born with abilities that come very naturally to them, but I think they can definitely be acquired by way of enthusiasm and hard work. So definitely, and then there's another video, maybe I'll link to both of them, about comparing yourself. You know, comparing yourself to other artists, that in itself can really be demoralizing. So on both of those fronts, maybe best to sort of ease back on, you know, dwelling too much on, do I have talent, do I not have talent, am I as good as this other person who is surpassing me, and so forth. Struggling here to stay true to this left-handed thing here. But anyway, I would say that one of the key things, as I think about it more, I become more and more convinced that perhaps more important than talent is a level of taste, I suppose, being able to see the difference between what works and what doesn't. And that's a perception thing almost. So I would say two different things that are required, from my point of view, to create great art is having enthusiasm for it. It's hard for me to imagine someone getting really good at something that they have no enthusiasm for and they hate, because then they won't put in the time. But then the other thing is, and this might be something that someone is born with or is maybe tricky to acquire, but that level of taste, you know, of being able to discern between something that is a fresh and original idea and something that's a cliche and has been beaten into the ground. That is, I think, a matter of perception and, as I've been saying here, taste. certainly something worth focusing on, and maybe I'll make another video that relates to that, this idea of having taste, or the ability to discern between good and bad. You know, those are harsh words, good and bad, but discern between, as I was saying, like fresh and cliche, and different matters like that. Well, I hope that helped at least a little, and thank you for your clever little reference to my video where I put hid the message into the lettering here. This one from L. Harper. To gain experience making a comic, is it better to make small, short comics or one large comic? Great question. And I would say that everyone's going to have their own path and follow a different road, I suppose, when it comes to this kind of thing. But I'll say at least this. When you do a comic of a certain length, which I would say 10, 20, 30 pages, you are going to learn certain things that cannot be learned in a 2-page comic, right? Because in a 2-page comic, you don't have enough time to start to build towards something, you know, to make a scene that has a sort of a beginning, a middle, and an end. Now, I'm not looking down on 2-page comics. I think some really great stuff can be done in that form. But just in terms of, you know, if you want to become great or really good at all kinds of comic book storytelling, I would say at least some of the time you're going to have to, at some point, you're going to have to challenge yourself to do a longer story. Because, as I said, you come into certain situations when you have 5, 6, 7 pages, 10, 15, 20 pages that you will never get if you're doing just these shorter. You know, the shorter ones tend to be kind of gag strips, or maybe kind of have a single idea that's developed very quickly and presented. So I would encourage you, if you have never tried to do, you know, my very first story that got published was 33 pages. And that was pretty good for a start, I found, for sort of getting where I wanted to go in terms of learning the basics. I'm going to move on here. I'm trying to do a winter scene here, maybe a little early in the season. But I was thinking of Impressionism. I used to have this book that was like Impressionists in Winter, and there was a lot of these beautiful oil paintings. It wasn't pastels, it was oil paintings. Showing these scenes in winter with the beautiful sort of purpley shadows. So that's kind of what I'm going for. Let us move on to the next question. This one from Soul Games Bagels. While creating Brodys Ghost, did you ever think of the ghost being male? Great question. No, the ghost was always going to be female, but here's something that might surprise you. The main character originally was going to be female. And I don't want to give anything away, but those of you who know the story, try to imagine a version in which Nicole is the main character, and then try to imagine in that same alternate version that there is no Brody. Brody is not a character in the story. There is only Nicole, and she is the main character, and she is the one who encounters a ghost, a female ghost. And the story continues from there. Hard to believe, but that was indeed my first concept of what the story was going to be. But I had just finished Miki Falls, which has a female main character. And I thought, I don't want to do 2 stories in a row in which the main character is female. I said, is there any way that I could have a male be the main character? And that is how Brody was born, how I came up with the idea of having him be the main character rather than the Nicole character. Sort of interesting as I look back to realize that that's the way it was going to be way back when. Let's move on to this next one from Freddy the Potato. Have you ever experienced any health problems as a result of drawing, such as carpal tunnel syndrome? No, I have never got so far as to have carpal tunnel syndrome. I have sort of seen other artists. Jill Thompson, I know, has had problems with that. The closest I came, just as a word of warning to you, was I had to hand letter. I had to do a comic that had all the word balloons and everything was going to be lettered by hand. This was many, many years ago. It was actually one of the first comics I ever did. And I did all of the art first, and then I held off and did all of the lettering by hand at the end. And that was a big mistake, because there was a very repetitive aspect to lettering, very carefully trying to do beautiful lettering that really did start to push my wrist to the limit, and I was very much in pain. I probably came within, if I had continued to force myself for another day or so, I may have developed carpal tunnel on that project, but I think I was wise enough to say, whoa, this is really starting to hurt. I got to take a break, and that's what I did. So yeah, interesting that it was, drawing has never got me to that point, but lettering has. People who do lettering professionally, I wonder if they just have a different way of holding the pen, or that if there are tricks of the trade that allow them to letter for days on end without getting carpal tunnel syndrome. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on. It is a little tricky because my fingers are getting covered with the pastel, and I suppose it doesn't matter if I get it all over these pieces of paper. But let's move on to number 5 from Gonzalo Pazos. Have you ever considered having Brodys Ghost adapted into an anime miniseries? Is that something you can offer to an animation studio or be lucky enough to get picked? Now, this question I'm sure I have answered before in previous Q&A videos, and I do try not to repeat myself too much, but I thought I'm still getting this question so often that I thought I would pull this one out and go ahead and answer it one more time. I like the question, though, because it contains the answer here at the end, or be lucky enough to get picked. Yes, that is indeed. For someone like me, that's what it all comes down to. You do your comic, like Brodys Ghost, you put it out into the world, and if you're really lucky, somebody reads it, someone in Hollywood reads it and says, hey, this would make a great animated show or live action film or whatever, and then they get in touch with your publisher, and then they request the rights. It's called an option to turn that into a film of some kind, or as this person was saying, an anime series. But if you, for the author, the comic book creator like me, to try to set that in motion, I don't even know how to begin. You know, I don't live in Hollywood. I don't have those kind of connections. I don't have a person who would do that on my behalf. I kind of wish I did, right? Some kind of guy who's like shopping it around. Hey, look, believe me, this kid is going to be a star. Crilly, you don't want to miss out on this. Yes, I wish I had somebody like that. I don't. And it really does come down to somebody. Well, Steven Spielberg, for example. Let's just dream big. Maybe Steven is flipping through comics at some point and he comes across Brodys Ghost. That's really what would happen. But, you know, I got to say, on behalf of people who do comics, who've had them published, when you ask them, why don't you turn it into an anime TV shows? Why do you not do that? It's a funny question to be asked, you know, because to me it's like going to someone who lives in a 1-bedroom apartment and saying, why do you live in a 1-bedroom apartment instead of a 24-bedroom mansion? Why did you make that choice? You know, because that's kind of what, you know, having an animated film made from your book, that's the dream, right? That's what everybody wants. And if it was as simple as just choosing to do it and make it happen, then we would all do it. But, you know, animation is, at that level, requires many people, dozens, if not like 100 people, to actually make an animated series. I certainly don't have the knowledge to try to do it on my own, and if I did, there would be nobody paying me to do it, and I would be devoting all these hours to something that was not helping to support my family, which in my position is a pretty hard sell, to go to my wife and say, honey, I'm going to stop working on paying jobs, and I'm going to start making an animated, you know, thing that has no guarantee of actually being put on TV because I don't have the connections. Anyway, I don't think people, when they ask the question, they're just asking as a fan. They're thinking, boy, I would love to see Brodys Ghost as a animated TV show. That's about as far as, you know, they're thinking about it, and I suppose I should just be grateful that they are, you know, would like to see that. I would like to see it too. And I think the question is really asked in that spirit. Of saying, boy, I can almost just picture it. You know, I can see the Brodys Ghost anime series in my mind, and it's going to be awesome, you know. And who knows, guys? It's always possible. not just for Brodys Ghost, but Miki Falls or almost anything that I've done. Even, the drawing lesson, my latest book there, which is a graphic novel, that could be turned into some sort of animated or live action, could be turned into something. It is a story. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So let's keep our fingers crossed. Why don't we? Let's move on now to number 6 from Maria Maza. You draw for a living, but do you also draw just for fun? Does drawing ever become the job that must be done, but you're not feeling it? It's a great question, and in my case, I must admit these days that I don't do so many drawings just for fun, which is to say, in my spare time, that's not part of a book or something that I'm under contract to create. Most of my art these days is indeed part of some sort of project publication. I have to say in my case that's a highly motivating thing, to know that the drawing that I'm working on is going to be seen by hundreds or even thousands of people. That gives me energy and makes me excited about that thing that I'm drawing in a way that I might not be if I was just only going to show it to friends and family and stuff. And that, that's just sort of the way I operate. I love the idea of lots of people seeing the drawing that I'm working on. I would want to say, though, and I want to make this clear, in my case, my work, the drawing that I'm doing for my work is fun. It really is fun. And in that sense, I do have a dream job, Every book that I've worked on, pretty much everything that I've done creatively is as a choice. It's something that I've come up with, the project idea, and it never feels like drudgery because it was my concept. And I'm lucky enough to be able to sort of wake up in the morning and work on a story that I came up with. So, there's no division between work and fun in my life. My work is fun. And boy, I'm very appreciative of how lucky that is. Not everybody has that. In fact, very few people have that. Work is work. Work isn't fun for the vast majority of people, but I'm one of the lucky ones. And I'm always incredibly grateful for that. So, thanks for that question. I think we had another one that is maybe a little bit related. Yeah, I put them back to back here because they're a little similar. From Nido Plays. Do you think you can make better art when you are assigned a project or when you do it for fun? So this is, it may sound like it's almost the same question, but I thought because of can you make better art when you are assigned versus just doing it for fun, I thought it kind of leads to a slightly different place in terms of, when you have an assignment, sometimes that can give people the motivation that they need to create art. Whereas if there is no deadline and there is no assignment, for some people you can start to get a little lazy and then, you got these ideas, but instead you just watch TV and it just never actually happens. I think that is indeed a problem for some people getting that. I'm so tempted to use my right hand, but I'm not allowed. Hang on a second, I got to wash my fingers so that I can work with this a little more. Okay, I'm back with freshly cleaned fingers. So I wanted to continue to talk about that. I know a lot of people really do need the discipline of a deadline, and I think certain musicians and so forth may find that they do their best work when they have an assignment. It helps them focus. And then, of course, there are people quite the opposite. They can't work under deadline. They have to work only when the spirit moves them. I think I'm kind of more the deadline-ish kind of a guy. It just helps me focus, and as I was saying in the previous one, to know that this is actually going to be seen by people. That fires me up and says, yeah, okay, let's make this the best thing it can be because it's going to be turned into an actual book and go out into the world. It's been many years since, when I did my very first story, Akiko on the Planet Smoo, that was really what we would call spec work. It was not, there was no publishing contract. It really was, I guess you would have to say, for fun. It was something that I was doing in my spare time. And it did come together very slowly. I was doing 1 page per week. These days, for me to do 1 comic book page per week, way too slow. No one would accept that. No publisher would accept that. I want to just jump in here and say that, I really do find that Impressionism is a great solution as me doing this as the so-called left-handed challenge. I am right-handed. I cannot draw precise lines with my left hand, but Impressionism is sort of like, that's just what you need. You need the lack of precision. It becomes a good thing. You get, you find yourself making these slightly beautifully unstable lines. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I would not, with my right hand, I wouldn't make lines like this. They wouldn't have that shaky kind of impressionist quality. So, yeah, this has been kind of a learning experience for me to see that left hand and Impressionism in my case. Now, of course, if you are left-handed, then the opposite becomes your challenge, the right hand. If you're ambidextrous, then get out of here. The rest of us just don't even want to talk to you because you can draw with both your right and left hand. No, if you can, that must be awesome. Maybe can you work on 2 drawings at the same time? Get more done. All right, I think I've beat that one into the ground. I did want to say, though, and clarify, I don't do very many drawings that are just for fun, but that doesn't mean that I never, ever, ever do drawings that are just for fun. Sometimes I have a friend in England, actually, that I write letters to, and I do mean like snail mail, old-fashioned letters, and I'll do illustrations sometimes for those letters, and that really is just for fun. That's never sees publication, never seen by anybody, except my friend who receives the letters in the mail. Let us move on now to number 8 from Awesome. I like this one. Awesome name, bro. I just have to say that with the surfer dude. Hey, awesome name, bro. Number 8. Hey, Mark, do you think having a good desk you're comfortable with helps in any way? Well, people who know me and know my response to art supplies over the years will not be surprised to hear me say that I don't feel the desk, in my case, is a decisive factor. Very often I am drawing on just a flat, old, disposable plank of, it's almost like plywood, except it's thinner than that. I do not work on some expensive, amazing artist's desk. This thing came from like Pottery Barn or something years and years ago. When I say this thing, I mean the thing that the video is being shot on. It's an old beat up. Part of me just temperamentally, I don't like the idea of attributing everything to the art supplies. I've said this in my books. I've probably said it in the videos, but to me, I think it is a good comparison. Thinking that it's all about the art supplies is like going to an Olympic swimmer and saying, what swimsuit do you wear? What is the brand? Because it's the years of swimming practice. It's not the swimsuit that has turned them into an Olympic swimmer. I'm not claiming that art supplies have no importance at all. But I do think that the people get an exaggerated idea. So anyway, here I am back talking about that topic again. But I did want to, because the question was about desks, I'm sure that there are companies that make incredibly expensive desks, and you could blow so much money thinking, oh, I'm going to be an artist now. I need to get this desk. I wanted to be one of the people who told you, I don't have an expensive desk. It's not necessary. If it helps you, great, but don't feel that you need it. Certainly has not been necessary in my experience. Let us move on now to number 9. This one from Matt Hode. Hey, Mark, I've sketched out a storyline for a comic, and I know there are characters and objects I will struggle to draw. Do you have any advice, i.e. rewrite the parts you can't draw? And I like how there's a question mark and an exclamation on the same one. What, should I just rewrite it and not include the things? Well, it sounds kind of funny, but the truth is I have actually done that in Meekie Falls. I may have mentioned this before, but there was a scene in Meekie Falls winter when they were going to ride a horse to get down from this mountaintop area where they were living temporarily in the story. And I got to that part of the story, and I was like, first of all, I was behind on my deadline, but I thought, man, I'm not good at drawing horses. This is going to be really slow going. And so I basically did change the story and said, no, they're going to get out of the mountains on foot. There was something romantic, I thought, about the idea of being on horseback, but the reality of having to draw that, unfortunately, I did. I actually cut myself some slack and said, to meet this deadline, I'm going to get rid of that aspect of the story because it wasn't essential. It was one of these sort of nice things. It was not absolutely crucial to the success of the tale. And so, yeah, I did. I actually changed the story. And, a lot of times the very first decisions you make, you might want to think that through. Like, if you don't like drawing skyscrapers and buildings, well, you're foolhardy to set your story in the middle of a big city because that's part of the job, So that first decision of where does this story take place, then you may want to think about what that means in terms of the art and act accordingly. I'm not saying that you should always run away or flee from challenges. Far from it. Maybe your dislike of drawing buildings is something that you have to confront and then enforce yourself. But I just say be aware of it and just know what you're getting yourself into. And I would say there isn't not necessarily shame in going, especially at the beginning of your, if you're just starting out, of going with an idea that is going to be a little less ambitious if it allows you to complete the story and at least get your foot in the door of having done a story, rather than, confront something that's way too challenging for you. Like it has lots of crowd scenes and you're not good at drawing crowd scenes. You may never get past page 3 because you're just like, I'm so frustrated by this. So anyway, I thought that was an interesting question there from Matt about, what do I do if my storyline involves things that I find hard to draw? And hopefully my answer was not complete nonsense as I tried to answer. Well, I think I'm going to do like I have normally done with these Q&A type videos, is to take a little break from the talking, do some time lapse. You will see always me using my left hand. I'm not going to cheat that, but I am going to do some time lapse here to get this drawing further along, because once we get into the lightning round, I really do. I can't draw very much. I'm mainly just focused on answering questions in the silliest way possible. So bear with me. I'm going to go ahead and do a lot more work on this in time lapse, and we'll be right back with the lightning round. All right, well, we've made some progress there thanks to Old Man Impressionist time-lapse. Oh yeah, me and Monet, we go way back. And now it is time, actually, you know what it's time to do is to get the 10th of the questions. I forgot that there was one last question from the sort of traditional question section from Max Chivington. What college art classes would you recommend for a soon-to-be college student? Well, I would definitely say you should have a beginning drawing class. If you've never had one of those, learn to draw what you can see. I always feel like you get the keys to the kingdom. If you acquire the skill of drawing anything that you look at, then you can learn that you can use that to learn how to draw different styles, all kinds of different things. So get one of those classes. I would say maybe you need some kind of a painting class that would give you the something about color, because a drawing class is not going to teach you about color. So some sort of painting class probably introduce you to color. Beyond that, these days probably you need some sort of digital knowledge. I can't really speak to it. It's a little after my time because computers were just starting to come in when I was in college. But I would say these days probably, if you want to do this professionally, you're going to have to take some sort of class intro to computer graphics or some kind of thing like that. Can't speak in detail about that, sadly, though. So let's go ahead and move on to the lightning round questions. This one begins with, it's not even a question, it is actually just a knock-knock joke. I'm going to go ahead and jump into it here. Knock-knock, who's there? Europe. Europe who? No, Europe who? This one from Moustache98. You know, I think you got to admit, as knock-knock jokes go, that one's not too bad. I thought it was funny. Anyway, let's move on to the first of the lightning round questions from Santiago Tovar. I love that name, Santiago Tovar. Do you like Marvel movies? Will you ever draw something related to them? I do like Marvel movies. Probably my favorite is the Winter Soldier. And not surprisingly also the first Captain America, especially the first half of the first Captain America movie. Really enjoyed that quite a lot. And I will eventually do it's kind of funny if you think about it that I haven't done any drawing video related to the Marvel movies, this insanely popular series of movies. We'll put that on the to-do list, Santiago, and hopefully be getting to that sometime soon. Let's move on to number 2 from Smashing Smash. How much blushies could a blushy blush if a blushy could blush a blush? I think we all know the answer to that question. It's blush 10,000, blush 100, and blushy blush. And that is the last time we're going to mention blushies in this video, I promise you. This from Ennis. Who would win in a fight, you or draw with Jazza? All UFC rules apply. Also, what would be your entry music? Now, guys, first of all, Jazza and I are never going to fight. We're buddies. We're all on the same team. But in your hypothetical scenario, he would destroy me, let's be honest. He is young and spry and works out, and I'm flabby and weak. And as for my entry music, what would it be? How about Sucker for Pain? I think that would be appropriate as my entry music, blasting through the arena as I enter. Let's move on here to number 4 from Emily Bell. What's your opinion on pineapples? I'm very pro-pineapple. I'm on the side of pineapples. I believe that pineapples are among the best things that you can get at a breakfast buffet in a hotel. How's that for my opinion on pineapples? The thing I wonder about, though, is the melon, the orange melon versus the green melon. I feel like the orange melon tastes better. Is it just me? Is there something to my wacky theory? Let's move on to the next one here. Number 5 from Candy Kale. How well do you know your memes? Well, there's only one way to answer this question. So there you have it, my response to the meme question. Also a little bit of a tribute there to Gene Wilder. Rest in peace. He is sorely missed. What an incredible performance in Willy Wonka and many other films. Let's move on to number 6 here. Why does Donald Duck wear a shirt and no pants, but Mickey Mouse wears pants and no shirt? Well, thank you, Stanley, for making me aware of this strange paradox of Disney cartoon characters. I think in the early years, you know, they were struggling. They didn't have much money. They only had one suit of clothes between them. And they did, what do you think, like a coin flip? And Donald Duck lost? I'm pretty sure that's how it happened, guys. So just have a little pity. Have a little pity for Donald Duck. Let's move on now to this one from JJM. Where are the cookies? Now, first of all, you don't have to shout. What's with all the all caps here, JJ? Let's keep it down here in the lightning round. Where are the cookies? I would say they are, next to the crackers. They're in the section with the crackers. You might also find them in the baked goods section. Or they might even have a box over by the potato chips. I'm not sure. I hope I have helped you to find your way around your local grocery store. Here we go. Number 8 from, how do I pronounce that? A-Ku-U-Kwao. What is 2 days before the day after tomorrow? Guys, you didn't tell me I was going to have to do math in this thing. Hang on a second here. 2, and carry the 5. Wednesday. I think the answer is always Wednesday. Let's move on to number 9 here from Saito Gaika. What is your favorite Jane Austen novel? Well, I'm very glad you asked me that because I am such an expert on Jane Austen. I've read all of the books multiple times. And it is so hard to choose. I would say there are 3 in contention. Sense and Sensitivity, Pride and Precipice, and Moby Dick. It's so hard to choose between the 3. I really don't know which is the one I should choose. Guys, just before you send me any emails, guys, I got them wrong on purpose. Please, give me a little credit here. But I'll be honest with you, I haven't read any of those books. I'm 0 for 3. I better get around to reading the books there. Let's see here. Number 10, finally, from Isaac Dunning. What would you do if an alien race of purple chinchillas abducted you, brought you to their planet, and made you king? Well, that's quite a question you've come up with there, Isaac, but I think I would, somewhat controversially, my first action would be to abolish the monarchy and hold a new election so that a purple chinchilla becomes the new ruler. What right do I have to be the ruler of the purple chinchillas as a human outsider? No, I would abolish that and let them rule themselves. Self-rule for the purple chinchillas, I say. Well, that brings us to the end of this video. I had a lot of fun doing this, and I really do think that this can hopefully serve as not just like a left-handed challenge kind of a thing, but more helping you inspire people who they don't have super great precision with their line work. Show you that does not necessarily have to keep you from creating nice art. As I say, I can't draw precisely with my left hand. It's always going to be a little bit shaky, a little bit wobbly, but we did manage to create a sort of a nice looking image here. So let that inspire you, hopefully, if that is something that you struggle with. Well, it is probably time for me to lay down this chalk. Pastel, I should say. I want to thank you all for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back with another one real soon.